What are the odds that the Oklahoma Sooners will play a ninth SEC game?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. The Oklahoma Sooners athletic director, Joe Castiglione, was on the Oklahoma Breakdown this week and talked about a variety of things from Jim Nagy to what's next for the Oklahoma football program, but also mentioned and had a discussion about the future of a ninth conference game in the SEC. It's one of the topics that's been hotly debated amongst SEC programs as it tries to come to a schedule equity with conferences like the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big 12 that already play a ninth conference game, Jay.
That will be interesting because one of the things that Josie said that jumped out to me, and we kind of talked about this in the green room, I think that this is actually a really good conversation to have in front of everybody on the recording, is he mentioned about having a quality non-conference opponent and how the ninth game is not as beneficial as some would think, mainly because the committee seems to favor shiny records, or the shiny thing that comes with having a really nice record in comparison to who you actually played against. And so, but even in retro, when you look at it, a team that could go 9-3 has a chance of making it into the tournament, make it to the playoffs based upon them winning or playing against a lot of tough opponents in comparison to someone who possibly went 10-2 or 11-1. But right now in the first one, it appears that, going 11-1 or 10-2 with a weak schedule but full of P4 opponents still is a little bit more favorable for you. So, John, as we talked about it, and I've been thinking about it in the last few minutes, if in the SEC decides, no, we're not going to do a ninth one, we're going to just keep it at 8, but you're required to play 2 P4 opponents, what would stop teams from going against P4 opponents that are like middle of the pack, say a Wake Forest, or maybe a Purdue's at the bottom of the barrel, but maybe an Indiana, while they're still up, a Northwestern who can be in the middle of the pack, Nebraska. Can we get Nebraska at night now?
It's an interesting conversation. I've always kind of been on the ninth SEC game side of this debate simply because I want to see more conference games. More conference games creates more energy, more fire in the conference title race. I get the argument that athletic directors are going to make and coaches are going to make. One more conference game creates a little bit more of a challenge for you to get to bowl eligibility. And that stuff matters when you're talking about the bottom line of an athletic director and a athletic program. You got to get that bowl revenue. It matters. At the same time, I sit in here and I wonder, okay, if you're going to play Michigan, or if you're going to play SMU, or if you're going to play Nebraska, why not play a ninth SEC game? It's basically the same. You're getting another challenging opponent, whether it's non-conference or conference. And so I get where, the conference commissioners and the athletic directors are coming from in this, where they want to make sure that, hey, listen, the path to a bowl game is going to still be pretty strong. If we add a ninth SEC opponent, the path to the college football playoff is going to be kind of strong if we add a ninth SEC opponent. The difficulty the SEC ran into in 2024 when they had 3 teams that were 9-3 is that South Carolina might have had the best resume of the 9-3 teams, but who did they lose to along the way? They lost to Alabama. They lost to Ole Miss, the other 2 9-3 teams in the conference. So there's no way the committee could have put in a South Carolina and left out an Alabama or an Ole Miss.
And no, you're 100% right there, and that's where the problem comes into the losses don't get weighed as much as the wins. I mean, Ole Miss losing to Kentucky at home, who wasn't very good, is bad, and then Alabama getting just destroyed by us, right? That
Right.
just completely ruined their resume. So that's where the tough part comes in. Should losses count more? Should losses have weight? Should losses matter? I mean, I understand that any given Saturday happens just like any given Sunday in the NFL. But with college playing so much fewer games, each game mattering should matter each time. Should we put more of an emphasis on who you lose to on top of who you beat? Because I mean, for Alabama's sake, they beat Georgia. Right, in a shootout. That was, I mean, they were blowing them out, then they let them come back, and they closed it out. So you win against the team that won your conference. Should that outweigh your loss against an Oklahoma? Should Ole Miss pulling out a victory, and losing to Kentucky at home, where does the weight come in? I think that's where the struggle comes in for me when it comes to making those decisions, because I'm on the opposite. I think 8 is enough for the SEC. No point in going to 9. Keep it at 8. Build yourself a preseason, because when you go into SEC play, it's a gauntlet. It's a battle. Just about every single SEC team is physical and tough to play against. Heck, Vanderbilt had a good year, guys. Like, Vanderbilt went to a bowl game. So to me, there's not that many teams that are just atrociously bad in the SEC. Teams rise and fall consistently on a regular basis there. So 8 to me is enough. Build it with some good matchups in between. Sure, you may not play Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Oregon. You may not play some of the top Big 12 teams, whomever you choose, as much. But I do think it would make sense to try to play some of the, middle of the pack. I wish they did it like the NFL, where they have the top teams play each other, middle teams play each other, bottom teams play each other, and rotate it around. But unfortunately, each school get the liberty of creating their schedule. That's the thing that I think kind of ruins all of this.
Yeah, and I kind of want to answer your question that you had a little bit ago about how do you weigh the losses versus the wins? And I think had Alabama's 3 losses come to Georgia, LSU, and let's say who was another big,
Tennessee,
maybe South Carolina or Tennessee, maybe they're in, but they lost to Vandy, they lost to Oklahoma. That Tennessee game was a 1-score loss, but you lose to Vanderbilt, you lose to Oklahoma, and that pretty much ruins you.
Yes.
I think those 2 losses negate that Georgia win. But say you beat those 2 teams, you lose to Tennessee, you lose to Georgia, you lose to LSU, and you probably have a little bit stronger of an argument. Even if you don't necessarily have a quality, quote unquote, quality win, a top 10 win, you still may have a stronger argument than had you lost to Oklahoma, lost to Vanderbilt. So I think the losses do matter. I think the wins do matter. It was just one of those weird years where you had 3 9-3 teams, and there was no easy way to put one in over the other. There just was no clear-cut path to putting one in. Had Alabama beat Oklahoma at the end of the season, they'd be fine. Even if they had a loss to Auburn, I think they would have been fine. They probably would have been in, because teams, or that rivalry game loss, would have probably weighed a little bit heavier than a loss to Oklahoma.
But losing to a Auburn team who's technically worse than Oklahoma, and you did both of them on the road, just like you lost to Vanderbilt on the road. Like, how do you make those? To me, rivalry games are kind of like, I throw those out the window.
They're coin flip
games. Yeah, exactly. They're always coin flip games, regardless of the records of the team. So it doesn't, to me, I don't think that should give you points or take away points on there. I think a loss on the road to an Oklahoma should hurt you, but I think a win against Georgia should help you, especially if you win on the road in Georgia. But they won that in Tuscaloosa. So, yeah, the argument's hard for any of them. I mean, with Ole Miss, their situation was they lost to Kentucky, LSU, and then Florida. So they lost to a Florida team that did not make a bowl game. They lost to a Kentucky team that did not make a bowl game. And then wait, did Florida make a bowl
Yeah,
game
Florida
last
played
year?
the
They
bowl
did.
game because
They played the bowl game. I'm
surged
sorry.
in the second half of the season.
They
were
did. I
much
forgot.
better
They did
team,
surge
yeah.
at the end. They played Tulane in the bowl game. So my apologies, Florida. I got that wrong. But they also lost to everybody they lost to was ranked at one point, if not by the end of the season.
Yeah.
For Florida. So is that as bad? Because I mean, Florida's losses were, they beat LSU, then Ole Miss in back-to-back games, and then of course took out Florida State, who was terrible. But you finished 7-5, finished 8-5 on the season.
That loss to Florida is not a bad loss. The loss to Kentucky is a bad loss.
It's a bad loss.
It's a
bad loss. Very bad loss. But they lost to LSU in overtime. So LSU was ranked, so I guess that helps. But that's also where my problem comes in with being ranked, having rankings at the beginning of the season. I hate them because then you deal with this mess. Yep. Should a rank loss at the beginning of the season count if the team doesn't finish the season ranked? Ranked win beginning of the season count when the team doesn't finish ranked? They count them, but I don't think they should.
They shouldn't. No, the scheduling thing is a big issue, and it's going to continue to be a big issue across college football because you're going to have varying strengths of schedule. That's just the reality of it. And kind of the best you can hope for is at the end of the season, you're a 10-2 team. And if you're 10-2 in a Power 4 conference, you should make it in unless you're in the Big 12. If you're in the Big 12, there's no guarantees. You're just hoping to get one in. But the ACC got 2 in. The Big 10, got 4, and the SEC got 3, and then you had Boise State representing the group of 5. So
yeah,
I don't think they got it wrong in the 12 team in 2024. It'll be fascinating to see how this goes down when you get to 16 teams starting in 2026, because we're going to get to 16 teams in 2026. But I think for 2025, the goal for Oklahoma and every team in the conference is going to be get the 10 wins. But just to kind of circle back to the 9th SEC game situation, if you're going to a 16 team playoff and you've got 9 conference games, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina are making the playoff in a 16 team playoff with their 9-3 records. So
fair point.
So what's next for the Oklahoma Sooners tight end room now that Devon Mitchell is no longer with the program? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Game Time. Game Time makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer. And with their all-in pricing, you can see the total cost up front. No surprises at checkout. Just toggle on that feature inside the app and you'll see all of the fees up front when you toggle on the all-in pricing. With great seat views before you buy, there's no surprises and you know exactly what you're going to be looking for. You get peace of mind with the lowest price guarantee, so you can book with total confidence. The lowest price guarantee means I never worry about overpaying. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Jay, the Oklahoma Sooners tight end room is going to look just a little bit different. Devon Mitchell is no longer with the program. So what can we expect the tight end hierarchy to look like for this team moving forward?
Yeah, we joked about it, but no true joke out there. Oklahoma dropped propaganda literally right after the announcement came of Will Huggins making a catch across the middle, getting hit really hard by Michael Boganowski and holding on to the ball. So to me, sounds like Huggy Bear might be one that's going to be stepping up. You're also hearing really good things about Jaren Cannock, but it doesn't sound like he's actually lining up on the line. He is truly playing an H-back, moving around and playing in the flat, doing some rubs, catching across the middle. So you're hearing words that, Cannock seems impressive, but I'm gonna be honest. I actually had a parent hit me up about it saying, yeah, if you watch the way Nagy's system works, you don't need a world beating tight end. We'll be fine. His system is built to get the tight end open when needed, but the focus is going to be the wide receiver room, which that's of course another conversation. That's where the focus goes. You're really looking at, he'll find ways to get them open enough, but it's all going to depend on how Mateer plays. If Mateer is going to be really, it's going to really depend on how dependent he's going to be. But I don't think he'll be very dependent on the tight end because he's never really had to be.
Yeah, we went back and we discussed the Washington State tight end snap counts over the last few years. Those guys got fewer than 400 snaps and not very many targets on the season. Now, if you've got a Mark Andrews type or Jermichael Finley, a Jermaine Gresham, James Hanna, got Dimitri Flowers, you got Jeremiah Finley, Braden Willis. If you got one of those guys are going to be on the field. They're going to get snaps and they're going to get targets. If you don't, you're going to roll 4 wide. You're going to roll 5 wide, maybe run some more 2-back sets where you're running some, 20 personnel and using less tight ends. There are going to be options for Oklahoma to figure this out without having a go-to tight end. It's going to be okay. But I think we're hearing some positive things about the room. Oklahoma Breakdown, Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman were talking about Carson Kent on their show earlier this week that, hey, he's creating some buzz. That dude can make some plays in the passing game. And if you go back to the one-on-ones we saw from reporters last week, they got to see practice. Carson Kent was the one dude that absolutely blew by his defender.
Yep.
And it was not even close. So there's some intrigue there. Now, can he hold up as a blocker? That's going to be a question. But if you're only going to be asking him to come in 3rd and long situations to make some things happen in the passing game, I don't need you to block. If it's 3rd and long, I need you to go make a play. So there's an intriguing aspect there. But I think, Jay, you and I both agree that if there's a guy that's a legitimate difference maker in the transfer portal at tight end, go pursue him, right?
Oh, absolutely. Oklahoma's going to be active in this spring portal. My only concern is, are you really going to find a game-changing tight end this late in the game? You typically find them in December in the winter portal. And to be honest, it didn't really feel like Ben Arbuckle was that interested in getting a tight end. And I'm just saying that based upon the way it looked, based upon the way they shopped. If that is the case, then he obviously must have a plan in place. The offense has been successful and has been showing some great moments here in spring. So do we really need a tight end? Should we really be next? I mean, we've got 7 of them on there. We've got young Trinae Washington, who I think could be some potential there. We just got to make sure he gets out there and play. And he's already at 6'4", 233. So technically he's about at the size that he could play here in the SEC. Cade McIntyre and Caden Helms, we still need to see a lot more to be desired. The Nebraska products have not given us that yet. I'm surprised that we haven't gotten anything out of the state of Nebraska like we normally do. Usually when we steal from there, they show up and do something. We haven't gotten it. Neither one of them have been able to be healthy. Can Caden Helm go out there and go ahead and make something happen? Is it his time now? Is Cade McIntyre at that point where he's ready to ball out too? Again, Trinae Washington is right there as a true freshman. You may need to go ahead and just toss him out there in the wolves and say, hey, man, go make a play. Go make a catch, get open, and go. I would rather go that direction and play that rather than really honestly shop in the portal. I don't think that there's going to be much value unless you get lucky that a big name player jumps in there, a big time player. I don't think you can get that lucky. So focus on what you got. Just don't use the tight end that much if you don't have to.
Yeah. And figure out a way to use these guys in ways that highlight what they can do well. Not all tight ends are going to be built for all situations, especially on this team right now. And if you're going to go get a guy, if he's not head and shoulders better than what you've got on the roster, there's no reason to add him. Just keep building with what you've got. The guys that have been here since the winter, been through the winter workouts, been through spring ball. They know the system. They've got some familiarity with Ben Arbuckle and with John Mateer, and you're developing them. Just roll with that. And listen, is it great? No. But do you need to add another guy that's a tight end 2, tight end 3, tight end 4 type to this roster? No. You've got plenty of those guys right now available for you on the roster that are healthy and out there actually making plays. Whether it's OU media propaganda or it's guys that are watching practice, the tight end group is making plays out there. So there's some encouraging things to take from spring ball. Now they just got to build on that and carry it over into fall camp and into the fall. We'll see. You know, the tight end room is not really that much different than what it was. It's just the future of the tight end room is a little bit more murky without Devon Mitchell. You gotta get something out of Trine Washington. He's got to become a big time playmaker for you down the road. Otherwise, you're going to be set back even further. But what's not set back? OU men's basketball. Portal Moser is getting after it right now in the transfer portal. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Monday was very fruitful for the Oklahoma Sooners men's basketball team as they picked up 2 transfer portal commitments. The first one came kind of midday. Tay Davis, the Notre Dame forward, committed to the Oklahoma Sooners. And then later in the day, the Sooners got Nigel Pack, former Kansas State and Miami Hurricanes point guard, commits to the Oklahoma Sooners, Jay.
Huge. And the big talk has been that it feels a little bit different in these portal pickups for Portal Moser, because it feels like they're actually going out there swinging. They're swinging after true talent, true players that can walk in and do something with, of course, Tay Davis coming in at 6'9" forward, averaged 15 a game and 5 boards for the Irish last year. Can't beat that. That means you got a guy that's going to be able to go out there and put up actual numbers. So if you play the money ball game, he's going to be able to put, just under what Duke Miles was providing you. And then you bring in, or even Jeremiah Fears, if you want to go that direction. Not saying he's Jeremiah Fears, but saying more so the number is close. But then you bring in Nigel Pack at 13.9, 4.3 assists and 3 rebounds. He's shooting 45 from the field, 38 from 3 in his 9 games with the Hurricanes. So it didn't seem like he played much. But hey, you just brought in 2 players that can get you double digits on a consistent basis. And I think that to me is where the game changer comes in there. That to me says, oh, you're for real, because you bring in Kai Rogers as well. So you got 7 other big coming in. There's a lot to look forward to. And I'm just kind of surprised to see that Porter has made us all forget that we were asking for his job literally like 2 months ago.
Yeah. So 2 big time commitments, both coming out of the ACC. Yes, Notre Dame is a football independent, but they play their basketball in the ACC. Davis, 22 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists against Houston earlier this year, the national runner-up. That's a pretty salty line. He was 9 of 15 from the floor in 37 minutes. Nigel Pack, the dude can fill it up. I mean, he's a 3-point shooter. If you've seen some of the stuff that people have been talking about, a true 3-point shooter. He's averaged, or he's shooting 40.3% from 3 for his career. That's really good. 14.3 points per game for his career, 122 games in his career. So he's part of that COVID class where he got the extra COVID year, but because he only played 9 games in 2024, 2025, going to get that medical red shirt. So This is a very experienced point guard that can come in and lead Oklahoma. He's a dude that can fill it up. He's got multiple games over 30 points. He has multiple games with 8 threes. I mean, he can shoot it. He has 25 games of 24 or 20 or more points, 60 games of 15 or more points. He's got,
Sheesh.
yeah. He has 31 games of at least 4 3-pointers, and he has 2 games with 8 3-pointers. I mean, so Bryson Goodine led Oklahoma with 1.9 3-pointers made per game this past season. For Pack's career, he's averaged 2.9 made 3-pointers per game.
Wow.
So the dude can shoot. And this is the thing I've been clamoring for with Porter Moser. He can get guys three-point looks. We just haven't had the guys to consistently bury him. And you've got a guy in him to be able to bury him now.
That's the big thing, is just as you said, he can scheme the guys open for the shot, but you need guys to hit those shots when it's in front of them and let the pressure hit them and they be okay. Well, I think Pack can give you that. And I mean, to be honest, Tay Davis, he isn't that horrible when it comes to it. I mean, he's not putting up 40% from 3, similar to what you were getting out of Pack, but I mean, that's huge. But Tay will put up some threes. He puts up about 1 a game on a consistent basis, which means that him as a stretch big forces teams to actually come after him. But if he can give us the 15 a game he got last year, which was the breakout year for him in Notre Dame, he was averaging 9 the season before he broke out this past season. If he can get you that again here, you may have got yourself a very solid class of transfers that could push you back to the tournament. The goal needs to be in the players they're bringing in here, not only the recruits that they've got, which is good, like Kai Rogers is going to be very solid, having guys that can get you past the first round of the tournament. Mm-hmm. That's what's most important right now. I don't care about anything else. You got to get past the first round. To me, making the tournament is not enough anymore. You finally got over the hump and made it one time, but you've got to get yourself a win in the tournament. If you get yourself a win in the tournament, you probably bought yourself another year or two.
Yeah, you've got to make the tournament every year. I mean, that's the goal. Like, that's the bare minimum. But you have to start having some runs, and you've got to be able to get to that, hey, we're playing for the Sweet 16. You've got to be on that weekend at least every single year. And I think with these 2 additions, you're bringing in some veteran experience, guys that can come in and contribute right away. And you're bringing it from a power conference. I mean, the ACC may not be what it once was, but it's still one of the better basketball conferences in America. So you're bringing dudes in that have that experience against top competition and can really benefit your roster that is going to be kind of young. You do bring back Muhammad Wegi, you bring back Dayton Forsyth, but again, young dudes. You're still going to have to get into the portal a little bit. You got 5 more roster spots available to you to add talent. And with the way that they've already addressed some needs, I imagine that they'll continue to be active in the transfer portal to try and, provide or get another big in the rotation. Because right now your front court probably is going to be Wegi and Davis. You probably need to have another guy that can be that, 3-4 combo forward, similar to like a Jalen Moore, a guy that can play on the outside, play on the inside. And then you're probably going to need another guard to add to your rotation at least. Because right now, is Dayton Forsyth the starter for you? I think potentially he could be.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that can play off the ball if you're going to let Nigel Pack run the point. So it's going to be fascinating to see what they do, but they're going to be players. And I think the addition of Trae Young, which we talked about last week, is a big reason why they were able to make these things happen. The influx of cash and the notoriety that comes with Trae Young.
Yeah, it feels like this was a Trae Young move with these players. It felt like it had some influence on him, but hopefully this is just the beginning, we're going to see more players like this come to the basketball side. That way we can kind of propel ourselves. We need to win out of the first round, man. That's all I ask for. Give me some Elite Eights, some Final Fours. Give me some Elite Eights. Shoot. Yep.
You got to get closer to 500 in SEC play too. You can't go 6-12, 5-13 in SEC play next year. You got to be better than that, especially against some of the top competition. You got to fare better than getting blown out. Now, listen, one of those blowouts was to Florida, who just won the national title, but that's what you're chasing. Like, that's the team that you're trying to chase down and catch. And so you've got to be aggressive in the portal and still on the recruiting trail. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. For your second listen of the day, go check out the Locked On NFL Draft podcast with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez as your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level. Our Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, and Ethan Downs get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. You can check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner. Just give me a win out of the first round. I think I'll be happy. I'll be quiet.
Just win, baby. Just win,
baby.